This Week Santa Clarita. This week, we'll be talking to Carol Smith of Insurance SCV. She will be sharing with us about the importance of knowing your insurance policy.
We're here today with Carol Smith with Insurance SCV, and we were talking a little bit about insurance and seniors. Not always a topic that we're commonly thinking about, but it's definitely, insurance is something that we've got to be looking for, your own personal homeowner's insurance. What kind of things then would maybe seniors or their families be thinking about that would be a little bit different maybe, or the same for that population?
Okay, well, I guess just like anybody, you want to know what kind of policy that you're getting. Many times when anybody buys a new house, for example, they'll just get on the phone and they'll get quotes and they'll just go for the least expensive quote they can find. And that's not always the best thing to do, because there are basically two types of policies. I won't go into it now, but there's more of a sort of a Cadillac kind of version, and also more that's more basic, and that's fine too, depending on what's good for you. Also, there are miscellaneous coverages that are really important to have. One of them that I always talk about is called building ordinance, or ordinance of law, ordinance or law they call it. And many times agents don't put that in. They just don't put it in. Because
it's costly, or?
No, it's not costly. They just kind of rush through things. That's my opinion anyway. And what that is, especially if you have an older home, if your house were to be destroyed by a fire or partially destroyed, building ordinance will give you funds to bring the home up to code. Because as the years pass, there are more stringent building codes that go into place. So.
Okay,
yes.
So I haven't necessarily, if I have an older home and I haven't necessarily built it up to code as I've gone, then if it's burned down or something happens, then this insurance will do the additional to make it up to code versus just to whatever it was.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's an important thing to have, especially if you have an older home.
Because I would have to do it up to code if it burned down.
Oh, you would.
And so now that's out of pocket if I don't have the insurance
for
it. Got it. Interesting. And it's just, these things, I mean, there are all the policies then don't necessarily equate. There's differences in there. And is it the kind of thing that you want to have an attorney look at, or in this case, it would be somebody like you, a broker looks at that kind of knows what they're looking for. Is that the idea?
Right. I think an attorney's taken it a little bit too far, but I wouldn't discourage anybody from doing it. So what I would do, I think the best thing to do is get a referral. Like maybe from your real estate agent or a family member, somebody that's a trusted professional. That's what you want to do. That can sit down with you, and go over all the coverages.
Now, as far as seniors specifically, is there anything that they should be looking at differently in insurance, or any? So obviously, when you're doing things, and like a life insurance is a very different look for a senior than it is for somebody who's younger. But in terms of homeowners policies and those kinds of things, is there anything necessarily different that they should be looking at in their policies, or pretty much the same policy that I'm getting when I'm 30 that I would be getting when I'm 80?
Yeah, I can't think of anything. A homeowner's policy is a homeowner's policy, no matter what your age. And I know when it comes to financial services, there are the state and the government has put in some safety checks so that seniors aren't taken advantage of. And for example, if you're a financial advisor, I think you have to give them like a day's notice or something like that. They just have little checks and balances in there, but there's nothing like that for home insurance.
There's not?
No.
So it's sort of buyer beware at that point.
Right, but it's not as involved as financial planning, of course. But just get a referral, somebody good, somebody that's going to take their time and sit down with you and go over the coverages.
So the idea here is because there isn't anything necessarily governmental or official in place, it's important for our seniors to look at and say, and their families to say, look, this is a kind of buyer beware situation, so make sure that you have a reputable person, somebody that you trust, that or that you've been referred by somebody that knows them, because there are some things that you could get into some problems with, like the one you described there.
And another one too, another little coverage I like to talk about is sewer backup. Issues.
Not a fun one, but but it could be expensive. It could be a problem.
And it's not covered unless you add it on. It's not that expensive. So I guess to summarize, you just want to get a referral, a good agent, and then maybe talk it over with your significant other, go over the coverages, and have maybe your relatives or children or friends look it over too with you. That's what I would recommend.
So there's a lot of things in there. Whenever I think of these policies, it sort of seems to me like it's just a cookie cutter, one after another
Not
thing.
really.
But it's definitely changed, including things like, and out here, fire, earthquake, those kinds of things. I'm assuming that those are, especially out here, this isn't necessarily a senior related thing, but this is more related to where we live, that those are things to look at. What kind of things should we be looking for in those arenas?
Okay, that's a good thing you brought that up, because some people may not know. I think most people do know, though. On a home insurance policy, earthquake is not included and flood is not included. Those are two things that are not included, like also maybe mudslide, those kinds of things. You have to get separate policies for those. California, we don't usually have to worry about flood, but we do earthquake, of course. And here's the thing, at the beginning of this discussion, I was talking about how there's kind of like a Cadillac policy. There's like two types of policies. There's a named peril that lists all the perils, like fire, theft, vandalism, falling objects, and there are 16 of them. They list all of them.
Okay.
Now, the better policy to have is what's called a special form, and it will say everything's covered except for what's excluded.
Okay.
So it's broader and more comprehensive. So I guess another point I would make, look in your policy, and when you have some time, read your policy and look to see what the exclusions are.
Okay, so there's two ways to go about it, to say, these are all the things we're covering,
There's a list of them.
right? Or we're covering everything except.
Right.
So the better way to go about it, so that you've got everything wrapped up, is we're covering everything except,
That's
as opposed to the other way
And
around.
that's certainly the better one. That's what's called a special form, compared to the named peril that lists everything.
And it's called a special form. Okay, and when you say special form, that special form doesn't matter the insurance company.
That's correct.
They're all, if you call it a special form.
Right, and the special form can pertain to the dwelling and the contents. I think there are some companies out there that will not give you special form on the contents. That may
Okay.
be okay with you, though.
Okay, very good.
And here's one thing I wanted to bring up, too. That's why you have to read your policy and read exclusions, because nobody's going to know everything in a policy, because we're not lawyers. But recently it's come to my attention that there's some restrictions on fire damage, like smoke damage. There's one company out there that limits it to $5,000 if there's smoke or smoke damage from a wildfire, smoke or soot damage.
So limits, and then others don't. So these are the
Right.
kinds of things you got to be looking
Yeah.
at to make sure that you've got the right one going.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and some policies give you a lot more. Probably you asked me, for a senior, maybe a senior doesn't need to have all these extra things added on, like for example, coverage for a business, things like that. And then also too, certain things too there are sublimits, like jewelry, watches, and furs, for example, are covered only usually to like 1,000 or 2,500 per item, 5,000 per limit. So there are sublimits. You should look in your policy and read that. Sublimits on jewelry, maybe a $5,000 limit on computers, maybe a $5,000 on silverware. Those are some of the things.
Interesting. Okay. You had also mentioned that there was something, not necessarily in the coverages, but is it discounts or something like that with AARP or?
Yes, that's true. Hartford, I represent a lot of carriers. You can see back here, Mercury's one of them, Hartford is one of them, and if you have been a member for AARP for at least a year, you will have already been a member, then we will give you pretty good discounts on your auto and your home.
So it's important to mention is when you're talking to a broker
Yes.
that, hey, I'm a member of AARP
Right.
for whatever number
Right.
period of
Absolutely.
time, because that could be some good discounts, and that's a good advice out there. Good.
Right.
All right, so important to know what you're doing there, and to mostly look for a good broker, which Carol Smith is one that you might want to be looking for along those lines. So maybe they tell us how they can get a hold of you. So your website.
Well, I think it's pretty easy. My company is Insurance SCV, and I'm here in Valencia. And to get in touch with me, you can go to my website, which is www.insurancescv.com.
So it's insurance, the initials SCV.com.
Right.
Okay.
Or my name, email carol@insurancescv.com.
Perfect. And then the phone number?
It's 661-803-3803.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time, Carol.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Carol, for coming on our show today. If you need more information on homeowners insurance or renters insurance, please contact Carol Smith at Insurance SCV 661-803-3803. Or you can email her at carol@insurancescv.com. Upcoming events in Santa Clarita for next week are Sunday, December 11th at 2 p.m., a Christmas Carol presented by Canyon Theater Guild. Wednesday, December 14th, Oakmont is hosting the SCV Chamber of Commerce Business After Hours Mixer at 5:30. The cost is $10 for members and $25 for non-members. Meet and share holiday cheer with members of the business community. Friday, December 16th, Atria is hosting Trader Joe's Winter Wine Tasting at 1:30. Come and enjoy sparkling wines at our holiday wine tasting. Saturday, December 17th, the Senior Center will be having their holiday social from 1 to 2 p.m. There will be a cocoa bar, ice cream, and Victorian carolers. Tuesday, December 20th at 4 p.m., Oakmont is lighting their Christmas tree and having festive refreshments and spirited Christmas performance with carolers. Please RSVP by December 18th by calling 661-347-0051. Space is limited. The next event at the SCV Community Health Resource Center is on Monday, December 12th. Safety staff will be presenting American Heart Association's Fitness, How to Get Fit and Stay Fit for the Long Haul. This is at noon. On December 13th, Tuesday, Rick Ferrante will be sharing with us the Alzheimer's Association's effective communication strategies. This is a slight departure from what our calendar says due to the little mix-up from last time. We will see you at 6 p.m. for some good information to help you make your holidays run a little bit smoother when communicating with your loved ones that have dementia. Thursday, December 15th, we have our Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiver Support Group and the Art for Alzheimer's Support Group. Both meet at 10 a.m. That's all for this week. I'm Stephanie for Home Care This Week SCV.